Shelter worker ignores crying dog for weeks. Then vet looks closer and gasps in disbelief. In a world where overcrowded animal shelters often mean life or death decisions, the persistent cries of one unremarkable mutt would lead to a discovery that would challenge everything we thought we knew about canine intelligence and the depths of human-animal bonds. When overworked shelter worker Jake Thompson dismissed the pleas of a scruffy mixed breed named Buddy, he had no idea that his actions would set in motion a chain of events that would not only save countless lives, but also revolutionize our understanding of animal cognition. This is the extraordinary tale of how one dog's desperate attempts to communicate would change the world forever. Millbrook Animal Shelter, a modest facility on the outskirts of a small Midwestern town, had seen better days. Underfunded and overwhelmed, it struggled to cope with a constant influx of abandoned and stray animals. Jake Thompson, a 28-year-old shelter worker with 3 years on the job, had grown increasingly jaded by the seemingly endless cycle of neglect and euthanasia. On a dreary Tuesday morning in October 2025, Jake began his shift as usual, making his rounds to feed and check on the animals. The cacophony of barks, meows, and whimpers that greeted him had long since faded into background noise. But as he approached the last kennel in the dog section, something caught his attention. A scruffy, medium-sized mutt with soulful brown eyes was pawing at the cage door, whining insistently. Jake glanced at the nameplate. Buddy. Male, approx of 5 years old, mixed breed. With a sigh, Jake moved on, chalking up Buddy's behavior to typical attention-seeking. Little did Jake know that this moment of dismissal would be the catalyst for a series of events that would not only transform his life, but also challenge the very foundations of our understanding of animal intelligence and communication. The relationship between humans and dogs has been a subject of fascination for centuries. Known for their loyalty and ability to understand human emotions, dogs have long been considered man's best friend. In recent years, scientific studies had begun to reveal the depth of canine cognitive abilities, showing that dogs could understand complex commands, recognize human facial expressions, and even exhibit signs of empathy. However, the full extent of canine intelligence remained a mystery. While there were countless anecdotes of dogs performing seemingly intelligent acts, the scientific community remained skeptical about attributing human-like reasoning and communication abilities to animals. Millbrook, a town of about 20,000 people, was an unlikely setting for a groundbreaking event in animal behavior. The local animal shelter where Jake worked was chronically underfunded and overcrowded. With limited resources and a constant influx of animals, the staff was often forced to make difficult decisions about which animals to euthanize when space ran out. Jake Thompson had started working at the shelter with genuine passion for animal welfare. However, years of witnessing neglect, abuse, and the harsh realities of pet overpopulation had left him emotionally drained. He had developed a protective shell, trying not to get too attached to the animals in his care, knowing that many of them would not find homes. Buddy, the mixed-breed dog that had caught Jake's attention, had been brought to the shelter 3 weeks earlier, found wandering the streets with no collar or microchip. Despite his friendly demeanor, Buddy had been overlooked by potential adopters, who often favored puppies or purebred dogs. It was against this backdrop of limited resources, compassion fatigue, and the ticking clock of shelter policies that Buddy's extraordinary story would unfold. Little did anyone know that this unremarkable mutt was about to challenge everything they thought they knew about animal intelligence and the power of interspecies communication. As Jake continued his morning routine, Buddy's whines grew more insistent. The dog was now standing on his hind legs, front paws pressed against the kennel door, his eyes fixed on Jake with an intensity that was hard to ignore. All right, Jake muttered, approaching the kennel. "What's got you so worked up, boy?" As he reached for the latch, Jake noticed something odd. Buddy wasn't just pawing randomly at the door. He seemed to be making deliberate movements, almost as if he was trying to trace patterns. Jake shook his head, dismissing the notion. He'd seen plenty of dogs engage in repetitive behaviors when stressed or seeking attention. Opening the kennel door, Jake expected Buddy to bound out excitedly. Instead, The dog remained inside, continuing his strange pawing motions against the back wall of the kennel. Curious despite himself, Jake knelt down to get a closer look. "What are you doing, buddy?" he asked, more to himself than the dog. To his astonishment, Buddy turned to look at him, then back at the wall, as if trying to draw Jake's attention to something. The dog then began to make a series of short, sharp barks, punctuated by low whines. There was a rhythm to it, almost like Morse code. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. This was no ordinary attention-seeking behavior. There was purpose and intelligence behind Buddy's actions that he couldn't explain. Just then, Jake's walkie-talkie crackled to life. "Jake, we need you at the front desk. There's a situation with a new arrival," came the voice of his colleague Sarah. Torn between his duty and his growing curiosity about Buddy's behavior, Jake hesitated. "I'll be right back, boy," he said, giving Buddy a quick pat before closing the kennel door. As he walked away, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that he had just witnessed something extraordinary. But with the constant demands of the shelter, he pushed the thought aside, focusing on the task at hand. Little did Jake know that his brief encounter with Buddy was just the beginning of a journey that would challenge everything he thought he knew about animal intelligence and communication. Over the next few days, Jake found himself increasingly preoccupied with Buddy's strange behavior. The dog continued his peculiar pawing and barking patterns whenever Jake was nearby, seeming almost frustrated when Jake failed to understand. Jake's colleagues had started to notice his increased attention to Buddy. "Don't get too attached," Sarah warned him one afternoon. "You know his time is almost up. We're running out of space, and he's not exactly adoption material." The reminder hit Jake like a punch to the gut. He knew the shelter's policies all too well. With limited space and resources, dogs that weren't adopted within a month were often euthanized to make room for new arrivals. Buddy's time was indeed running out. Driven by a mix of curiosity and growing concern, Jake decided to spend his lunch break observing Buddy more closely. Armed with his smartphone to record any unusual behavior, he settled down in front of Buddy's kennel. At first, Buddy just wagged his tail, seemingly happy for the company. But as Jake started to speak softly to him, the dog's demeanor changed. He began his now familiar routine of pawing and barking, but this time, Jake was determined to find a pattern. As he watched and recorded, Jake's eyes widened in disbelief. The pawing motions weren't random. They formed distinct shapes: circles, squares, triangles. And the barking, when he really listened, seemed to follow a specific rhythm. "This is insane," Jake muttered to himself, rewatching the video. "It's almost like he's trying to communicate." Just as Jake was about to call Sarah over to see, the shelter's veterinarian, Dr. Emily Chen, walked by. Dr. Chen, a recent addition to the shelter's part-time staff, was known for her innovative approaches to animal care. "Everything okay, Jake?" she asked, noticing his intense focus on Buddy. Jake hesitated, then decided to take a chance. "Dr. Chen, I know this is going to sound crazy, but I think Buddy is trying to tell us something." To Jake's relief, Dr. Chen didn't immediately dismiss him. Instead, she knelt down beside him, her eyes sharp with interest. "Show me," she said simply. For the next 20 minutes, Jake and Dr. Chen watched as Buddy repeated his sequences of movements and vocalizations. Dr. Chen's expression grew increasingly amazed as she observed. "Jake," she said slowly, her voice filled with a mixture of excitement and disbelief. "I think you might be right. This isn't random behavior. There's a clear pattern here, almost like a language." Before they could discuss further, an emergency with a sick cat called Dr. Chen away. But before leaving, she turned to Jake with a determined look. "Don't let anything happen to Buddy. I'm going to make some calls. I think we might be onto something extraordinary here." As Dr. Chen hurried off, Jake looked back at Buddy, who was watching him with those soulful eyes. "Don't worry, boy," he said softly. "We're going to figure this out." Little did Jake know that Dr. Chen's calls would set in motion a chain of events that would not only save Buddy's life, but also revolutionize our understanding of canine cognition and interspecies communication. Over the next week, Millbrook Animal Shelter became a hive of activity. Dr. Chen had reached out to her contacts in the scientific community, and soon a team of researchers from the nearby university arrived to study Buddy. Jake found himself at the center of it all, working closely with the scientists to document and analyze Buddy's behaviors. As they delved deeper, the true extent of Buddy's abilities began to emerge. It wasn't just simple shapes and rhythms. Buddy was using a complex system of gestures, vocalizations, and even facial expressions to convey specific ideas. With the help of AI-powered pattern recognition software, the researchers began to decipher Buddy's language. The breakthrough came on a rainy Thursday afternoon. As Jake sat with Buddy, showing him pictures on a tablet as part of the researchers' tests, something extraordinary happened. Buddy, looking at an image of a park, began a series of movements that the software translated in real time. Go, green, people, happy. Jake felt his heart stop. Buddy wasn't just mimicking or responding to stimuli. He was forming actual sentences, expressing abstract concepts like emotions. As the implications of this discovery sank in, the shelter erupted into a frenzy of excitement. News crews began to arrive, alerted by leaks from the research team. Animal rights activists, hearing rumors of a dog that could talk, gathered outside the shelter. Amidst the growing chaos, Jake found a moment of quiet with Buddy. As he sat beside the kennel, still reeling from the day's events, Buddy placed a paw on his hand. Looking into those brown eyes, Jake saw not just intelligence, but a depth of emotion he had never before recognized in an animal. "I'm sorry I didn't listen to you earlier, Buddy," Jake said softly. "But I promise, I'm listening now, and I think the whole world is about to listen too." Little did Jake know that Buddy's message was far more profound and urgent than anyone could have imagined. As the world tuned in to hear what this extraordinary dog had to say, a revelation was coming that would challenge the very foundations of human-animal relationships and spark a global revolution in animal welfare. 2 weeks after the initial breakthrough, Millbrook Animal Shelter found itself at the center of a global media storm. News vans lined the streets. Scientists from prestigious institutions around the world had set up temporary labs in the shelter's parking lot, and a hastily constructed press area buzzed with anticipation. Jake, now thrust into the role of Buddy's primary handler and interpreter, stood nervously beside Dr. Chen as they prepared to address the world's press. Buddy sat calmly at Jake's feet, seemingly unperturbed by the commotion around him. As the cameras began to roll, Dr. Chen stepped up to the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was about to share. "What we have discovered here in Millbrook challenges everything we thought we knew about animal cognition and interspecies communication." Over the next hour, Dr. Chen presented the team's findings, showing videos of Buddy's communication and explaining the complex language system they had begun to decipher. The audience watched in awe as Buddy demonstrated his abilities live, responding to questions by combining gestures, vocalizations, and interactions with a specially designed tablet. But it was Jake who delivered the most stunning revelation of all. "Buddy's not alone," he announced, his voice shaking slightly with emotion. "What we've learned from him has allowed us to recognize similar patterns of communication in other dogs. It's not as advanced in most cases, but it's there. Dogs have been trying to talk to us all along. We just weren't listening." As the implications of this statement sank in, the room erupted in a frenzy of questions. Journalists clamored for more details, ethicists raised concerns about the implications for animal rights, and fellow scientists demanded to know more about the research methodologies. But the most powerful moment was yet to come. As the noise in the room reached a crescendo, Buddy suddenly stood up and made a series of deliberate movements. The room fell silent as the translation appeared on the large screen behind the podium. "Humans, listen. Not alone. All animals think, feel, speak, different ways, learn, understand, help." The simplicity and profundity of Buddy's message left the audience stunned. Here was an animal, long considered inferior in intelligence to humans, eloquently expressing concepts of universal communication and empathy across species. As cameras flashed and reporters rushed to file their stories, Jake knelt down beside Buddy, tears streaming down his face. "You did it, boy," he whispered. "You made them listen." Buddy nuzzled Jake's hand, then turned to face the audience once more. His next message would be the one to truly change everything. Danger. Earth, all life, must work together, save home. In that moment, on live television watched by millions around the world, the relationship between humans and animals was forever altered. Buddy had not only demonstrated unprecedented intelligence, but had also delivered a warning and a call to action that transcended species barriers. As the gravity of Buddy's message sank in, Jake realized that this was just the beginning. The ability to communicate with animals opened up not just new realms of scientific discovery, but a whole new perspective on our place in the ecosystem of Earth. The implications for conservation, animal welfare, and even our approach to combating climate change were staggering. The press conference ended in a whirlwind of activity, but for Jake, everything else faded into the background as he looked into Buddy's eyes. He saw there not just intelligence, but wisdom, concern, and a deep connection to the world around him. In that moment, Jake understood that his journey with Buddy was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. In the weeks and months following the groundbreaking press conference, the world struggled to come to terms with the implications of Buddy's abilities and message. The video of Buddy speaking went viral, sparking intense debates in scientific communities, ethical forums, and even political arenas. Animal rights organizations seized upon Buddy's words to push for stronger protection laws. Philosophers grappled with questions of animal consciousness and the redefinition of intelligence. Linguists and cognitive scientists scrambled to develop new frameworks for understanding and facilitating interspecies communication. For Jake and the staff at Millbrook Animal Shelter, the aftermath was both exhilarating and overwhelming. The shelter, once struggling to stay afloat, now found itself at the forefront of a global revolution in animal welfare and communication. Donations poured in, allowing for much-needed renovations and the implementation of state-of-the-art communication technology for all the animals. Jake, once a burnout shelter worker on the verge of quitting, discovered a new purpose. He worked tirelessly alongside Dr. Chen and the research team to refine and expand the communication techniques developed with Buddy. His natural rapport with the animals and his first-hand experience with Buddy's early attempts to communicate made him an invaluable part of the team. Buddy, now a global celebrity, remained as calm and focused as ever. He worked patiently with researchers, helping them to understand the nuances of canine communication and assisting in developing translation tools for other animals. His message about the interconnectedness of all life and the need to protect the planet became a rallying cry for environmental movements worldwide. As the initial frenzy settled into steady progress, the impact of Buddy's revelation began to manifest in concrete ways. 1. Animal shelters across the world began implementing communication technology, leading to a dramatic increase in adoption rates and a decrease in euthanasia. 2. Schools started incorporating animal communication and empathy training into their curricula, fostering a new generation of humans attuned to the needs and thoughts of animals. 3. Conservation efforts were revolutionized as researchers began to work directly with animals to understand ecosystem needs and implement more effective protection strategies. 4. The legal status of animals began to shift, with many countries introducing new laws recognizing animals as sentient beings with rights beyond mere protection from cruelty. 5. Scientific research into animal cognition exploded, leading to breakthroughs in understanding not just domestic animals, but wild species as well. 1 year after Buddy's first public communication, Jake found himself standing on a stage at the United Nations, Buddy faithfully by his side. They were there to address a special session on interspecies cooperation in combating climate change. As Jake began to speak, he couldn't help but reflect on the incredible journey that had brought them to this point. "A year ago," he said, his voice filled with emotion, "I was a burned-out shelter worker who had stopped listening to the animals in my care. Buddy taught me, and all of us, the importance of truly listening and the incredible things we can learn when we open our minds to the possibility that intelligence and consciousness exist in forms we might not immediately recognize." Buddy, as if understanding the weight of the moment, stood up and approached the microphone. Using the advanced translation technology that had been developed over the past year, he addressed the assembly. "Humans and animals, not separate. All one family on Earth. Together, we can heal our home. Apart, we all suffer. Time to listen. Time to act." for all life. As applause filled the chamber, Jake knelt down and hugged Buddy close. In that moment, surrounded by world leaders and broadcast to millions around the globe, they knew that their work was far from over. They had opened the world's eyes to the deep emotional and cognitive capabilities of animals. But there was still so much to learn, so many more animals to save, and a planet to protect. The story of Buddy, the dog who went from being an overlooked shelter mutt to a pioneer in interspecies communication, had become a beacon of hope. It stood as a testament to the power of compassion, the importance of listening, and the vast, untapped potential that exists in the animal kingdom. As Jake and Buddy left the UN that day side by side, the future seemed brighter than ever for animals and humans alike. 5 years after Buddy's first communication, the landscape of human-animal relationships had transformed dramatically. The Interspecies Communication and Cooperation Initiative, ICCI, founded by Jake and Dr. Chen, had grown into a global organization with branches in over 50 countries. Its programs for facilitating animal-human understanding were now standard practice in progressive schools, businesses, and governments worldwide. Jake, now a renowned expert in the field of animal communication and welfare, divided his time between research, lecturing, and overseeing the ICCI. Buddy, defying the odds for canine longevity, continued to work alongside Jake, his cognitive abilities still astounding researchers. The impact of their work was evident in statistics worldwide. Shelter euthanasia rates had dropped by 90%. Endangered species populations were rebounding thanks to cooperative conservation efforts, and a new era of environmental stewardship was dawning as humans learned to work alongside animals to protect shared habitats. As Jake and Buddy prepared to launch a new initiative aimed at establishing the first animal embassy to the UN, they reflected on the incredible journey that had started with a ignored cry in a small-town animal shelter. That one moment of connection between a jaded shelter worker and a desperate dog had sparked a revolution in our understanding of animal minds and the human-animal bond. The ripple effects of Buddy's groundbreaking communication and the subsequent work of the ICCI spread far beyond the realms of animal welfare and conservation. Over the next 2 decades, the ability to communicate with animals led to paradigm shifts across multiple fields of human endeavor. In the realm of science, the study of animal cognition exploded with new research initiatives. Scientists, inspired by the complexity of animal thought revealed through communication, began to look more closely at the cognitive capabilities of various species, both domesticated and wild. Studies on elephants, dolphins, and great apes yielded surprising results, suggesting levels of intelligence and emotional complexity previously thought impossible. The field of medicine saw unexpected benefits from interspecies communication. Animals, able to articulate their experiences more clearly, became invaluable partners in developing new treatments for both human and veterinary medicine. The ability to understand animal perspectives led to breakthroughs in pain management, mental health treatments, and even early disease detection. Environmental conservation underwent a radical transformation. Instead of humans making unilateral decisions about habitat management, collaborative approaches involving communication with local animal populations became the norm. This led to more effective and harmonious conservation strategies, resulting in the recovery of numerous endangered species and the restoration of damaged ecosystems. In the realm of technology, the challenge of facilitating interspecies communication drove rapid advancements in AI and biotechnology. Neural interface devices, originally developed to bridge the gap between human and animal communication, paved the way for breakthroughs in treating human cognitive disorders and enhancing human-computer interaction. The long-term impact on human society and culture was profound. As people gained a deeper understanding of animal thoughts and emotions, societal values shifted dramatically towards greater empathy and respect for all forms of life. This cultural shift manifested in various ways. 1. Education systems worldwide were overhauled to include comprehensive programs on animal communication, empathy, and environmental stewardship from an early age. 2. Urban planning evolved to incorporate the needs of local wildlife, with cities redesigned to allow for greater coexistence between humans and animals. 3. The legal system underwent significant changes, with many countries granting personhood status to certain animal species and establishing courts dedicated to adjudicating interspecies disputes. 4. The entertainment industry transformed, moving away from the exploitation of animals towards collaborative performances that showcase the true intelligence and creativity of animal partners. 5. Philosophy and religion grappled with the implications of animal sentience, leading to new schools of thought that emphasize the interconnectedness of all life. 6. Even space exploration was impacted, as the lessons learned from interspecies communication on Earth informed protocols for potential contact with extraterrestrial life. As for Jake and Buddy, they lived to see their once radical ideas become the new global standard. In their later years, they focused on mentoring the next generation of interspecies communication specialists, ensuring that the legacy of understanding and cooperation would continue to shape the world for generations to come. Buddy, having far outlived the typical lifespan for his species, passed away peacefully at the age of 20, surrounded by his human and animal family. His cognitive abilities had remained sharp until the end, and his passing was mourned globally. A state funeral was held in his honor, attended by world leaders and broadcast to millions, a testament to how far the world had come in recognizing the value of animal lives and contributions. The Interspecies Communication and Cooperation Initiative, which had grown from the initial breakthroughs with Buddy, evolved into a major global institution, influencing policies on animal welfare, environmental protection, and human-animal relationships worldwide. In the end, the simple act of a shelter worker finally listening to a dog's plea had grown into a global movement that reshaped humanity's relationship with the animal world, offering a path towards a more empathetic, sustainable, and integrated future for all species on Earth. The story of Jake and Buddy serves as a powerful reminder of the transformative potential that lies in open-mindedness, compassion, and the willingness to listen to voices we might not initially understand. At its core, this tale challenges us to reconsider our preconceptions about the boundaries between humans and animals, and indeed, about the very nature of intelligence and consciousness itself. Jake's journey from a burned-out shelter worker to a pioneer in interspecies communication embodies the idea that profound change often begins with a simple act of empathy. His willingness to look beyond his initial dismissal of Buddy's behavior and truly listen highlights the importance of remaining open to possibilities that challenge our established worldviews. The remarkable communication breakthrough with Buddy invites us to reflect on the depth of emotional and cognitive capabilities in animals that we have often overlooked or dismissed. It raises profound questions about the nature of intelligence and the potential for meaningful connections across species barriers that we once thought impenetrable. Moreover, the global paradigm shift that resulted from this singular connection demonstrates the far-reaching consequences our actions can have. It serves as a testament to the idea that small acts of kindness and understanding can snowball into movements that reshape our world in fundamental ways. The long-term outcomes of Buddy's story challenge us to reimagine our role as humans on this planet. Rather than seeing ourselves as separate from or dominant over other species, it proposes a model of partnership and mutual respect with the animals that share our world. This new perspective offers hope for addressing complex global challenges, from environmental conservation to advancing our understanding of consciousness itself. Ultimately, the tale of Jake and Buddy is one of hope and redemption. It illustrates that even in the face of burnout and disillusionment, remaining open to unexpected possibilities can lead to extraordinary outcomes. It reminds us that the boundaries we perceive between ourselves and other species are often of our own making, and that bridging these divides can open up new realms of understanding and cooperation. As we reflect on this remarkable journey, we are invited to look at the world around us with fresh eyes. What potential for understanding and connection might we be overlooking in our daily interactions with animals? How might our small acts of compassion and attention ripple out to change the world? And how can we, like Jake, remain open to the wonderfully unexpected possibilities that exist in our relationships with the creatures who share our planet? As we conclude this extraordinary tale of interspecies connection and revolutionary discovery, I invite you to pause and consider your own relationships with the animals in your life and environment. How might your perspective shift if you approach them with the same openness and empathy that Jake eventually showed to Buddy? Take a moment to observe the animals around you, be they pets, wildlife, or even the often overlooked creatures in your backyard. What signs of intelligence and emotion can you recognize? How might you deepen your connection with these beings? We'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences. Have you ever had a moment of unexpected connection with an animal? How do you think our world would change if we could communicate more effectively with other species? Share your stories and ideas in the comments below. Let's start a conversation about how we can foster better relationships with the animals we share our lives and our planet with. If you found this story inspiring, please like and subscribe to our channel for more thought-provoking content. In our next video, we'll be exploring real-world innovations in animal cognition research. You won't want to miss it. Remember, every interaction with an animal is an opportunity for learning and growth. Who knows, your next encounter with a pet or wild animal could be the start of an extraordinary journey of discovery and connection. Like Jake, you might find that animals have far more to say than we ever imagined. We just need to learn how to listen.